Today we're going to be talking all about what makes good wedding vows.
That can make or break a wedding.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have good vows because, well, it really just shows how much you love the person.
Yeah, but what if you're just not good at writing?
Well, then you better start early, which is one of the tips we're going to talk about today.
Have you heard some good, bad, and awful vows before?
Yeah, I've heard some that were definitely one-sided, where the bride did really good vows and then the groom really had nothing in return. There's actually a funny video that we saw on TikTok the other day, right? And he's just like, "I love your booty," and that's all he really said. And then the officiant, "You got some more time here, let's go."
It really does make a big difference when you write good vows, because I think it should also be fair in the sense that if you are going to write something that's a little bit longer or whatever, I think you guys should have that conversation on what it's going to look like so that the other person doesn't get left surprised.
Yeah, vows are just a great way to express how you're feeling and say it in front of other people. I think that's the important part of it. And as a videographer, as a photographer, it's just really good to see them come out into the open. We had talked a bit earlier about doing it privately versus doing it in front of a crowd. And it's always nice to do it in front of a crowd because you get those genuine reactions, especially from parents, grandparents, friends, family. And seeing it for the first time, especially hearing it as a couple in front of everyone, I think is really special. Bethany, how early should you be planning your vows? When should you start writing them? And what's the benefit to starting early?
I don't know if there's an official rule as to when you should write them, but I do think that it is worth perhaps sitting down with whoever you're marrying and saying, "Hey, I'm writing my vows. So far, this is where I'm at in terms of I'm going more emotional, or I'm going more funny, or I'm going more one direction," if that makes sense. And also to just confirm length of the vows. Also, I think it's important that you avoid looking at Google. You can go to Google for inspiration, but I feel especially as a professional, I've heard the same vows or the same speeches or whatever. It's always been the same thing at each one. So it's really important to not just exactly copy paste what you find on Google. I think there's also room for you to put a story in the vows as well. The first time I really felt that I loved you was when you farted in front of me. I don't know. I have no idea what it would be. Obviously that would mix in some funniness or whatever. But the idea being that I think there's room for you to sort of have that discussion openly so that neither one of you are nervous or embarrassed on the wedding day.
Yeah, I think the earlier you can start, the better. And having that conversation obviously plays a big part. Starting with a list of what you may want to talk about is always a good starting point of some funny stories, like you said, some romantic moments, some key milestones that you've hit with this partner, or what you're even looking forward together in the future.
Yeah, I love the looking forward to, because I feel that always gets people in the feels "Oh, I can't wait to have children with you," or "I can't wait to grow old with you." That's that's the clincher for sure, that everybody, if they aren't crying at that point, they're definitely crying as soon as you start talking about future children or things like that. It's hold back those tears.
Yeah, coming up with a format together as well as you don't want one person, their whole vow is promising to do certain things, or "I promise to love you, I promise to this," and the other person only says one promise. Having it balanced between the two makes a huge difference in not only editing wise of their final videos, but I think just overall feel and experience from the guests as well.
Something that I saw recently that I think would be also a really cool way to either start or finish a vow is a poem. I've seen people, so they'll say there's this poem that I would like to read for you or whatever. There's just some really cool poems out there that I think are also very special. If you find a poem that really speaks to you or your relationship or your feelings, and maybe that's just a different, unique way of also expressing them in that form. And then it's you're stating this is a poem by so-and-so. So you don't have to really, you know what I mean, come up with all of it yourself.
The poem idea is a really good one to start with or finish with, because it just shows that you put a little bit more effort into it, or there's a certain thing, poem or saying that really connects the two of you that maybe people didn't know about for example, a poem about raving or EDM music.
I think in that case, though, it would be like rather than a poem, maybe it's some lyrics.
Song lyrics, yeah, you're right. Oh, that's a good catch. Some song lyrics that we could say.
Yeah, I think song lyrics would also be funny, like a rap song or something. I think there's ways of just making it unique and making it you, and I think that's really what we need to talk about next for sure, is how to make them uniquely about the two of you is also a fun way to make your vows stand out as well.
Sorry, I was just thinking about lyrics. My chick bad, my chick hood, my chick do stuff that your chick wish she could. Would that be a good one to throw in?
Probably not.
Probably not. Maybe the speech later on.
Or like, I like big butts and I cannot lie or something, like you just wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe, depending.
I mean, if she has a big butt and you like it, then it's fair game.
I'm sure there's couples out there that have done stuff like that. I just hope that one day we get to capture it.
I know, it's content gold for us, right? Think about it. You could be on TikTok. You could be on TikTok.
You could be famous.
Famous.
You could be so famous. You just use song lyrics in your vows. However, I wanted to point out that sometimes I think people are nervous to do personal vows, and I get that, but I think that there's also another opportunity to do something that feels a little less official, which is during like your speech at the end of the night. We're talking about vows, but if you're just like nervous about saying too much during the ceremony, because the ceremony in itself is just a lot, a thank you speech at the end where you can say some nice things about each other is also a nice way to just sort of say something nice about each other versus it being like this official, like during the ceremony part as well.
Well, we always recommend 4 different audio sources on a wedding day whenever we talk about wedding videography with our clients. There's just some key moments that you can use audio that we can capture and then use it later on, and that's first looks, also a letter in the morning, and then your vows and your speech. So don't discount any of those in a day. If you're a little afraid or you're embarrassed or whatever it is that you don't want to say it in front of your family and friends, you can always just save it later on once you've had a few drinks, once the ceremony's over, and express yourself that way.
Yeah, the pressure's off too, I think, at that point. And if you are nervous about speaking, one of the tips that I also have that I think everybody should also consider.
Imagine people in their underwear.
No, but do your speech, your thank you speech right away after your grand entrance to kind of get it done.
True.
If you're nervous or you just want to like be able to just like almost like wash your hands of like finish with most of the activities, I've seen that done a few times and I actually really like it because then that way the couple can just like kind of not worry about having to speak again or anything like that. The pressure's kind of off. They might have to do a first dance or something like that, but as many activities that you can get done like right away so that you can just fully like relax is definitely one of my biggest recommendations on a wedding day. Like last year we saw like cake cutting right after the grand entrance, or right after the grand entrance they do cake cutting and they do their first dance. Like imagine they just did cake cutting, first dance, thank you speech, sit down, and then that's it, right? Like it's just the rest of the speeches for the night.
Take a shot and take a seat.
Yeah, I think if we were to get married again, that I would, we were to do the big thing, that's how I would do it. Just get as much of it done as I can so that I can just like chill. I think that in any marriage or relationship, regardless of marriage, there's going to be ups and downs. Having somebody who's there to grow with you, who's able to bring you up when things are down, or to just be there and be down with you.
That's the fun part about the repeated vows, is it hits on a lot of points that maybe you need to expand on when you're doing personal vows, and being there through the good times and the tough times, because there's always going to be tough times in any relationship.
Luke, what would be something if somebody was having a hard time finding inspiration? What would be one of the questions you think somebody should ask themselves to be able to create a good vow from it?
If you're having a hard time thinking of what to put in your wedding vows, there's a couple questions you can ask yourself. Why did you decide to marry this person? It's a super straightforward question. It should be easy to come up with.
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. One person proposed and the other person said yes. So there has to be something there that you can talk about, either what made them who they are today, what about them that you love. Another question you can ask yourself when you're writing your vows is, what did you first think of when you saw your partner? And that's something that you'll elaborate on.
Well, obviously we met online, so the first impression that I had of you was just the bathroom selfies that you took, or the elevator selfies, perhaps. And you met all of my criteria, so we went on a date. And when you showed up for the date, you were not quite dressed in a way that, but just like a good house with good bones, I looked past the paint colors. I looked past the things that I could fix, aka your clothes and
everything. Okay, keep going.
And I fell in love with your personality and your smile and just the way you made me feel at ease, where I could totally be myself. And so, yeah, when I first met you, when I first saw you, I was a little bit thrown back, but I saw through that you were a good person.
I thought you were going to say the skater shorts or the chain I had around my neck.
I know.
Or
the good bones, right?
Oh, okay.
But the paint colors were your clothing.
Okay. Oh, those are all the paint colors. Gotcha.
Yeah, the paint colors I could change. Just like this house, we moved in here. There's a million colors on the walls, but we saw the good bones and
here we are.
And we painted it.
Yeah.
A few more questions that you could ask would be, when did you realize you were in love? What do you have now that you didn't have before you met? How has he or she changed your view of the world? What do you miss most when you're apart from each other? What hard times have you gone through together? And what makes your relationship keep on ticking? I feel like these are really good questions, and if you can even write a few sentences about those are your vows. They don't have to be any more complicated than that. And I'll never forget, and I'm going to say it because I still haven't forgotten it, were vows that I heard a few years ago from a couple when they said something the most real and authentic way, which was, I promise to eat healthy with you all week so that we can eat McDonald's together on the weekend. And there's never been a more real vow than that one right there, and I will never forget it.
A vow that really spoke to us, right? And I think a lot of people can relate to that vow. But even going through the questions that you mentioned earlier, all of those can be a story, right? Those are all moments that or milestones through your relationship that you can attach a story to. So it doesn't mean you need to explain a story for each one, but I think if you insert a story or two that really personalizes it for the two of you, it'll really send your vow to that next level.
Yeah, the tearjerker level.
Yeah.
Or the laughing level. Both are equally fine for me. But if you can do both, whew, you got a winner on your hand there. I hope that this was helpful. If you are writing your vows, please let us know if you've heard some funny vows or some emotional vows and how they made you feel. And if you're going to write vows, I think that's a really good one for people to sort of talk about is, are you going to be writing vows on your wedding day? And if so, are you going to use any of these tips?
That's true. I say yes. Write vows. Even if it's something as simple as putting it in a card beforehand and giving it to each, doing it personally, I think it always adds a little bit extra to the wedding and a little bit of spiciness for the two of you.